The reason I'm going to talk about regrets is I was having a conversation with a very close friend recently. And this friend of mine has come to the end of a relationship in her life. And she doesn't want to date. She's decided that she has no use for any of that. And the reason is because throughout her life she has made what she calls mistakes. Every relationship did not finish. It was not good. And she regretted the choices that she made. So we were sitting and we were talking. And I asked her, well, what about your children? Because she had 2 children from these relationships. She absolutely adores her children. She loves them. So were the children a mistake? No. So why regret the relationship that gave you those children? It was something positive that came out of it. It is true that the relationship itself did not end well. It started off good. Most relationships, when they start off, they do start off good. But we tend to only remember the ending. We remember what could have been, what should have been. And we regret those decisions and thinking, oh, my life would have been so much better if I hadn't met this person, if I hadn't started this relationship. And yet, you have to remember that every decision, every experience in our life gives us something. And while it's true she might have had children out of another relationship, they wouldn't be the children that she has today. They would be different. She would be different. And so we got to talking about this, and we were talking over and over again. And she finally realized that no, we don't need to regret the decisions that we made in the past. Now, are we going to repeat them? Probably not. The idea of our life experiences is to learn from them. And no matter how a situation turns out, it's looking at what opportunities came your way. What gifts did you get from those? From those children, she also now has grandchildren, which she absolutely adores. And had she not had those same children, she would not have the same grandchildren. Would she have others? Of course, possibly. We don't know. When we spend our time focusing on regrets, on what we wish we could have done, and imagining that we can jump into a time machine and go back in time and change certain events, we have to remember that changing those events will completely change your entire life. It could erase all of the good memories that you have, all of the joys and experiences that have lifted you up and fulfilled you. But at the same time, even the experiences that were not good, the ones that part of you wishes you could forget or that were painful, they go into creating who you are today. You change one thing and you become a totally different person. You have to ask yourself, even if you could go back in time, why would you want to? What is the purpose in it? And the other thing that always strikes me when I think about this is who's to say that a different choice would have turned out any better? Who's to say that the lessons that you needed to learn, you wouldn't learn anyway, it would just be with somebody else. So to sit and think about, oh, I wish that person had never come into my life. And when I was talking to my friend, I was remembering other conversations that I'd had with people I'd worked with, women who are going through divorces. And I can say that the relationships needed to end. There was definitely an end point at that relationship. And yet they were constantly talking about how meeting that man and marrying that man was the worst decision they had ever made. And they would say it in front of their children. So as a child, you have to stop and think, okay, what does that mean to me? If I'm a result of that relationship, am I also one of the biggest mistakes? And I don't believe any of the people I've ever talked to feel that way, but words have power. And when we start listening to people that are talking about us directly or indirectly in the form of it was a result of one of the biggest mistakes of my life, that absolutely translates to you two are a mistake. And we have to remember that when we are talking to people in general, is that we don't hurt psychologically, spiritually, or mentally our children, or anybody for that matter, by making them feel that they're a mistake. Now, when I was a kid, I really, really enjoyed these Choose Your Own Adventure books. They were really good. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but I absolutely loved them, because you'd start off with a story, and after a couple pages, you'd get 3 choices. You'd have to make a decision on where the story was going. And then you'd turn to that page and you would go. So you could read the same book 10 times, and it would always kind of end up a little bit differently. Well, life is a lot like one of those Choose Your Own Adventure books. The only problem is you don't get to find out immediately the impact of that decision. And unlike the books, you don't get to start over and say, I didn't like the way that ended. Let me see the other way that it's going to go. What we do have the opportunity to do, though, is to look at those choices that we make. And we might say, you know what? Knowing what I know today, I probably would not do that again. That is learning the lesson. That's looking at what the situation was, what choices we made. We can't change them. You can't go back and erase it. You can't rewrite history, but you can rewrite your future. You focus on the moment. What was the lesson there? What was the opportunity? Every single day gives us opportunities. It gives us a reason to wake up and be somebody new, and to look at who we were, not regret it, not beat ourselves up over it, but to look at it and say, you know, I could have been better, so I will be. And you learn that lesson, and you try every day to be the best person that you can. I truly do believe that in our daily life, we, for the most part, we do the best that we can at that moment. And sometimes our best isn't what we want it to be, and we could do it differently down the road. But at that moment, that was the best that we could do. And that's really all you can ask of yourself. But you need to take the time to look at, what could I learn? I'm currently in the process of reworking some things in my book. I'm actually reading it again. And part of what I'm going to be doing is I'm retitling it, redoing the artwork. And I was sitting down in a conversation with Gary and a friend of ours who's helping me with the cover. And he asked me, he said, so what is the most important thing? What is at the core of your book? And what I really came to realize is that it truly is about no regrets. There is a lot in my book that, knowing what I know today, I absolutely would not repeat. I would not do it again. But I can't regret anything. I can't regret any of the people that came into my lives or any of the relationships. Some of them really ended horribly. Most of them, I learned something fantastic from every single one of them. I learned what love was. I also learned what love wasn't. We think we know what we want out of life. Sometimes we even think we know what we don't want out of life. The true way to find out what you do and don't want in life is to experience it. You get into situations that you say, no, this is not for me. No, I don't want to be treated this way. No, this isn't the projection that I want to go to. But you wouldn't know this unless you experienced it. So for every experience, positive or negative, the biggest gift in there is it tells you who you are and what you want to be. We only know who we are by experiencing life. We only know what we believe by seeing the opposite and by experiencing it and growing with it. Carolyn Mays says, Every relationship and experience is an opportunity for you to grow and to transform your life. And I really do believe that. I believe every day when I wake up that I have an experience to grow. Do I always grow? No. Yesterday was a very perfect example of it. I had a great opportunity to grow, and I sat on the couch all day watching TV. But it was raining, and let's face it, it was a perfect day to be on the couch, right? But that also was a choice. I made that choice. I gave myself that opportunity to unwind and to relax and to just say, today is for me. I don't care. Ended up watching a lot of reruns of stuff. So the definition of regret, and I only partially agree with this, but the definition of regret is to feel sad, repentant, or disappointed over something that has happened or been done, especially a loss or missed opportunity. Now, emotionally, that does describe what regret is. But when most of us talk about regretting something, we regret the things that we did. Those are the biggest regrets that we have. A lot of times, I've heard a lot of conversations of people talking about towards the end of their life that at the end of your life, you're not going to regret that you didn't respond to that one email or that one telephone call or things like that. And I think that's pretty surface regrets when you're talking about it. The regrets that hold us back and that are the burdens that we carry, those are the relationships that didn't work out, the decisions that we made that caused financial issues or caused a breakdown in a relationship or caused a breakdown in our health. And we sit there and we think about it, we think about it, we think about it, and that's all we're doing is we're thinking about the past. We don't find a way to move into that moment. The regrets hold us back. They keep you from being able to realize that you're not that anymore. Whatever it was that you are feeling that is holding you back, you need to let that go. Through many of our talks here, we are constantly talking about letting go of attachment. And so many people honestly believe that when you talk about letting go of attachment, you're talking about forgetting about it. Okay? That's not what it is. You don't want to forget your past. If you forget your past, how are you going to remember those lessons? So you want to remember what happened to you. You want to remember the choices that you made, but you don't want to put so much emphasis on if I only could have changed this, if I had only met this other person. Because again, and I'll keep saying this over and over again, we are who we are because of those choices. Turn a different corner at any time and you would meet different people and your life would not be the same. My life has been a series of running into people that one choice, and I can pinpoint every single one of them, one choice made differently, I would not be standing here today. I might be in another state. I might not even be here because there were some choices in my life that were rather destructive had I made them. There were other choices that I made that were destructive and it just made my life a lot harder to get through them, but I learned from them. I remember them. And that is really the point that we really have to remember. So Don Miguel Ruiz writes, letting go of the past means you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. All that matters is right now. And expressing ourselves and growing from the lessons in the past, but living right now, making new decisions, making new choices, and giving up those regrets. Letting go of that burden, lighten yourself just a little bit and let go of those burdens. Kind of reminds me of somebody carrying a big thing of balloons, helium balloons. And the bigger that bundle is, the harder it is to control. And those are your burdens. And if you want to find out what freedom feels like and how much weight can be lifted, just let go of the balloons. Let them go. Let them take care of themselves. There's an unknown writer, or as we sometimes call him, anonymous, that's credited with the following. Don't waste your time looking back at what you've lost. Move on, for life is not meant to be traveled backwards. Now, I really like this, and one of the reasons is, remember, I just said that I was working on reimagining my book. And as we were throwing out new titles, one of the titles that we jokingly threw out there was Birds Don't Fly Backwards. Okay? Have you ever noticed when you look at a bird or a plane, they don't go in reverse? They're always moving forward. Okay? They might hop backwards, but they fly moving forward. We need to be those birds. We need to constantly be flying forward and not always looking behind us, trying to fix what can't be fixed. You can't change it. Learn from it, but you can't change it. And I seriously, totally believe that there is no reason to want to change it. So life doesn't allow for us to go back and fix what we might rather have done differently in the past. But it does allow for us to live each day better than our last, learning and growing from the experience. Always remember to forgive yourself for the things you might do differently today. And know that while you can't, and you should not want to change the past, you honor who you are by finding the opportunity and learning from it. Charles R. Swindoll writes, "We are all faced with a series of great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as impossible situations." And Steve Maraboli says, "Stop trying to fix yourself. You're not broken. You are perfectly imperfect and powerful beyond measure." So I would like to, let me rewind that. The list that Bill read during his talk this morning, there were a lot of things on there. And to me, they were very, very powerful. The actual list was 40, which I felt was just a bit too long. But the point of that reading, the point of the meditation, is to remind us that we are perfect. We may not always make the best choices, and I'm not going to say the right choices, because really there is no right or wrong. We're going to make the choices that are going to give us those opportunities to learn the lessons that we need to learn. So I don't believe in right or wrong, but sometimes they may not feel like the best. There are times that the choices that we make might cause us some pain, might cause pain to others. If we stop and take a moment and look at our lives, and instead of looking at the things and looking at them as regrets, figure out what you learned from it. And if you didn't learn anything from it, then stop. Analyze it, and based on how you would do it differently today, figure out what the lesson is there. When it comes to relationships and situations in your life that may not have worked out the way that you wanted to, instead of regretting that relationship or that job or that situation, look at what opportunities that choice at that time brought to your life, whether it's children, loved ones, experiences that you never would have experienced. As I look back at my career and I look at some of the choices that I've made going from one company to another, some of them were doozies. I mean, I made some really, really interesting choices, and I carried Gary along for the ride. Ultimately, every one of those jobs led to a better opportunity. And even when it felt like I was going backwards, ultimately I moved forward again. When I was working in the mortgage industry, I was changing jobs about every 6 months. And I did this simply because it was the best way for me to advance and to make more money. When the mortgage collapse happened and I moved into a whole different field, that mortgage collapse was devastating for us as a household. because both of our jobs basically revolved around housing in one way or the other. It ultimately led me to the job that I have today that I never, ever would have even considered, known about, or thought about. So even that situation where everything felt like it was falling apart and would be absolutely devastating turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me or happened to us. And I truly feel that the work that I do now is a direct reflection of who I really want to be. The work I was doing before was a reflection of the money I wanted to make. So I had to shift at some point. And honestly, the only thing that was going to shift me was losing it. Because as long as that money was coming in, I was just fine continuing right along with it. So the only thing that could open my eyes was for a situation to happen that I had no control over and to watch what felt like my entire life was disintegrating. And even at that, there is not a single regret that I have. I'm going to close this morning with a poem, and I'm going to beg your indulgence for it. I am a light that flickers. Some days I shine bright. Some days no more than a glow. I am light. I am a song that is off key. A solo that will not carry a tune. A choir in perfect harmony. I am a song. I share wise words my heart confirms. Teachings and lessons my brain concurs. At times the path I follow close. Detours and falls lead me back. I am perfect. I am imperfect. I am all I can be in this moment. I'm nothing more, nothing less than me. Sometimes I falter, forget I'm not alone, forget to reach ahead and back, attempting to walk alone. Alone never am I, for even when I reject the hand, when I withhold my hand, pushed and pulled am I by those reaching for me. I am comfortable with my flaws. They make me who I am. I recognize my flaws, and step by step, I strive to overcome. Not about what should or should not be. What matters most is what is. My growth is not burdened by regrets. I am made stronger and wiser by the lessons of yesterday. I would like to thank all of you for being here this morning. It has been a pleasure. Thank you.